Excellent. So here we are at Superbooth with Rupert Neve, and that's a surprise. I didn't expect to see Rupert Neve here.
Yes, Rupert Neve Designs did decide to exhibit this year. We've done it in the past, but this is one of our first years kind of going a bit more all in. We're up here on the mezzanine, which is kind of nice on the way into the Pro Audio Hall, and behind me is where all the food and synthesizers and drinks are and everything. So we're right in the middle.
And guitars as well.
And there are guitars and yeah, so forgive that. We're not here for that. We do have some fun synths here on our booth. We've got some stuff that we borrowed from our friends at Moog, which is enjoyable. We've
just
got
to make a synth
a DFAM and a Mother 32, so people have something to play with besides stereo sources. And we brought a small rack of gear here. Obviously not everything that we make, but you know, the things that we thought might be most appropriate for this crowd here. They're already into modular gear, so we have most of our 500 series modules, like the tape emulators and the preamps and the EQs and the diode bridge compressors. We've got our Shelford channel here, which has been known for a minute at this point. Got our 5057 Orbit 16-channel summing mixer. We have our MBC Master Bus Converter with the limiter. And then up at the top, we have our newest product, which is the RNDi-8. So you might or might not be familiar with the RNDi conceptually. The first RNDi you'll see up here on top, which is this guy. This is a mono direct interface for instruments. This debuted in 2015, and since then we've sold about 25,000 channels of RNDi around the world. So that's broken up into about 19,000 RNDIs and about 3,000 RNDI-Ss, which were introduced a couple of years later. And as you can see, these do have fairly large transformers in them. They are our own custom designed, custom wound, custom built transformers, which go into all of our gear. You know, we design all of our own transformers. It's a huge, huge part of the Rupert Neve Designs sound, and it's one of the kind of the main pillars of what defines a Rupert Neve design throughout the years. This goes way back to even before the 60s. Rupert's first job was designing transformers, and this was his basis in getting into audio in the first place. So the custom transformer thing, you know, people often think of the Marinaires or the Carnhills or something that's in some of the classic gear, but Rupert has always been very stringent about his own transformer design, and he passed all of this knowledge on to the team at Rupert Neve Designs. When he started the company in 2005, he used to do weekly transformer design classes with our engineering team, and at this point, it's become a really defining feature of a lot of our gear, not just for the galvanic isolation that they provide, but also obviously for the tone. You know, people think of a Rupert Neve design from over the years. It's about hitting the output stage hard to get a certain musicality and saturation with second and third order harmonic content. And this is in all of our gear. I mean, you've seen it in the silk circuit, which is where we manipulate those transformer harmonics in multiple modes with silk red and blue across different portions of the frequency spectrum. So this is a hallmark of our design, and in the RNDIs, this is no exception. Now, there's no control over these transformers. They just are what they are. But in brief, the RNDi series, there's a mono, there's a stereo, and now there's an 8-channel. It is a active transformer DI, which it basically combines the best elements, in our opinion, of an active DI and a passive DI. So there is an active circuit in it that was designed by our team, and there are these passive transformers that were designed by the team. The 3 direct interfaces you see here are essentially the same circuitry-wise. They have the same sound. The 8-channel one really is just 8 mono RNDIs in one chassis. You can see here, this is the front. Well, the front the way we currently have. These rack ears are reversible, so they can be put on either the front or the back of the unit.
That's a neat idea.
Depending on which side is needed to be most accessible for whatever purpose you're using it in. So let's call this the front for now, because it's the one with the product name on it. We've got our inputs. So there's 8 inputs. There's a through. There's this ground lift, and there's a minus 10 dB pad. Now, the differences between these 3 units are essentially regarding feature set. So with the first RNDi, we have this switch here on the front, which selects between instrument level or speaker level input. So you can either plug an instrument direct into it and then go through out to an amp, or you can select speaker and you can do the output of your amplifier into this box. Now, it's not a load box. It's not going to soak up, you know, 100-watt tube amp or anything, but you can connect the output of up to about 1,000 watts of a solid-state amp to it, or if you use the through, you can go through to a speaker and get the soak of your amplifier, as it were, whether it's tube or solid-state. On the stereo DI, that speaker switch is gone, but instead there's a 3.5 millimeter input there on the front for all of your devices that output at that size, which we know they're around. We know people use them. It's just kind of a handy thing to have around in the studio or on stage. And then on the 8-channel, the feature is that there is a pad. You will notice there is no pad on the other ones because they can accept up to about 21 dBu on the input, which is more than enough to handle 99.9% of things that are out there that you're going to plug into it. There's basically one thing we've heard of that outputs more than that, which is a very high-end Pioneer DJ turntable thing, which for some reason outputs more than, plus 25 or 26. So for this one in particular, we did put a 10 dB pad on it, which raises the input to about plus 31 on the way in. So feel safe, rest assured, you can plug anything you want into this and it'll be just fine. Super high headroom. What we hear from people who use our DIs, especially, and this is why it's important in this room, this is one of the big reasons why we're here, people who spend a lot of money on guitars, on basses, on analog synthesizers, if they want to get the most out of these instruments, these very high quality instruments, it is of our opinion and that of many others that having a very high quality direct interface is the best way to do this. Our users often tell us they hear another half an octave on the low end of whatever they're plugging in. I mean, you got a really nice Moog or anything that you would find in this room. This is going to let you get the most out of these instruments. So the other feature, I guess, that I suppose I forgot to mention on this is on the back panel. Obviously, this is where you output to a mic preamp. These are all 48-volt phantom powered, by the way. So the output here gets connected to a preamp. Preamp sends 48 volts. On the 8-channel, all 8 channels are individually powered because they are 8 individual circuits across the whole thing. So you need 8 channels of phantom if you want to run all 8 channels of the DI. And you'll notice that there is another switch on the back panel. So in addition to the ground lift on the front panel, there's a pin 1 isolate on the back panel. So that's kind of the traditional ground lift that you think of that's on our other DIs as well. So that obviously lifts pin 1. This isolates that. It's one ground lift option. Sometimes that doesn't work. When you have 8 things connected on one side and 8 more things connected on the other side, you have a lot of potential for ground loops, for hum, for buzz, things like that. So not only do we have the pin 1 isolate switch on this side, on the front panel we've got the ground lift switch, which is actually a circuit chassis ground lift. So you can lift the entire channel's circuit from the chassis ground. And this is, again, doable per channel for all 8 of them. So we've provided multiple options for ground lifts in case people need to diagnose and troubleshoot and find hum in their system. They can get rid of it easily if they need to. But yeah, again, really, it is if you're familiar with the RNDi, which 25,000 of you are, it is a great sounding DI, and this is 8 of them in one chassis. So we see it used in, we plan on seeing it used in a couple of different scenarios. An obvious one would be in a studio that has a lot of synthesizers. You've got a synth station, you want to connect everything into one hub. Rack one of these up with a patch bay next to it, and you're pretty much set to be able to put any of your instruments through any of the other tools in your studio that you have them connected to. We'll see them on stage in synth world. On a lot of stages, there's going to be guitar and bass on separate parts of the stage, so the monos and stereos are probably more appropriate for that. But the 8-channel for synth world, for sure. And the other one where we know it's already being used is on drums live. Everybody's got triggers these days, or if you're using electronic drums, anybody with a V-drum kit, this is a really, really easy way to just elevate the electronics game on the output of all of these instruments that you're using. So that's the RNDi-8 in a nutshell. Obviously, you can learn more at rupertneve.com. The price of this unit is $1,999 US dollars. Varies a little bit depending on if you're in pounds or euros or whatnot, but that's essentially where it is. And it is shipping already around the world. It has been for a couple weeks. And if you want to learn more, rupertneve.com, or call your Rupert Neve distributor or reseller. Thank you for watching, and we are having fun at Superbooth. If you're here, I hope you are too. If you're not, you should come next year, because this is what trade shows should be like.
Well, that covered absolutely everything. I've got no questions left at all to ask you.
Okay.
Thanks so much for that. Have a great rest of the show.
Thank you very much. You too.